Bienvenidos al club. Aquí estamos un día más, estamos a miércoles 1 de diciembre. Hoy no es día habitual de NBAdictos, pero es que hoy no es una entrevista habitual. Hoy tenemos un gran invitado, uno de los más grandes que han pasado por este programa, un hombre por cuyas manos han pasado muchísimos jugadores NBA, un excelente analista de baloncesto y un grandísimo comunicador, ni más ni menos que David Thorpe. Con él hablaremos de su carrera como entrenador y, por supuesto, hablaremos de la actualidad de la NBA. Aquí comienza el capítulo 369 de NBAdictos. Ya sabéis que, como siempre, hoy haremos la entrevista en inglés y los próximos días la traduciré y la publicaremos doblada. Pero empezamos, ya recibimos a nuestro invitado, Coach David Thorpe. Welcome to NBAdictos.
Hey, thanks for having me, Manu. I appreciate it.
It's a great pleasure having you. Maybe in Spain, the people don't know you well, but if we start talking about all the players, all the NBA players that went through your hands to improve their I don't know how to say rendimiento.
their game, their skills.
Yeah. Their skills. Maybe ring some names that the people knows. They call you the godfather of player development, so I have to be careful with what I say. I don't want to wake up with a horse head in my bed.
I'm a friendly godfather, I promise.
Tell us, Coach. You have been in this job of personal player development since like 30 years.
Yeah, so basically, I started coaching just high school basketball when I got out of college in 1987. I didn't really, honestly, Manu, I don't know if you want me to talk about it, but I didn't expect to get into coaching.
Mhm.
I was going to pursue a graduate degree in psychology, actually, out in San Francisco. They didn't really have a lot of sports psychology back then. It was more industrial, which is business psychology. But there was some sports psychology stuff going on at the Kennedy School out in San Francisco. And I was interested in doing that. And I wasn't sure if I wanted to do it right after college. So I came home. I was a writer. No surprise, considering that I'm still a writer now. And I was that summer. So the summer of 1987, like May, June of 87, I was offered a assistant coaching job for a varsity level high school team, which would be, juniors and seniors in high school, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, and the head JV coach at this same school of, 14, 15-year-old kids. And when I was offered that job, which I wasn't sure I was going to do, I also worked in the summer. I lived on the beach, but where I live is a beach community. I lived on the beach with a buddy of mine, and he had gotten a job, and I'm like, you know what, I'm going to get a job too. It was boring in the summer before I decided what to do. I took a writing job, but it was a job that I didn't have to move to Chicago for initially. I could live where I lived, and then ultimately moved to the Chicago area, covering football actually. And I didn't want to do it, but I needed to make some money, and so I took a job working at a athletic goods store in the mall near, like, 30 minutes from my house. And the first day I was there, which was July the 6th, 1987, I met a really gorgeous blonde-haired girl who I thought was like 25. I was 22. And I got home that day. I wasn't living at home, but I visited my parents and had dinner with them that night. And I told them I met the girl I'm going to marry. Now, I barely knew her first name. That was it. I don't think we talked. I don't know how I knew that. I didn't know anything else in life. I was a dumb 22-year-old. But I decided to kind of stick around that year and see if I could maybe convince her that I was worthwhile to date. And then I started coaching, and I fell in love with coaching, and I fell in love with the blonde. who right now is in Hawaii on vacation, but she's been my wife for 31 years.
Oh,
So it worked out pretty good.
congratulations.
So yeah, I just was coaching high school basketball. And after 4 or 5 years of doing that, we were very successful. And I had a lot of good players, and I traveled the country working basketball camps and just trying to improve my craft. Um, I started getting some opportunities to coach in college. And she was willing, my wife Christy was willing to move anywhere I wanted to go. She was still in college when I dated her. She graduated 2 years into our dating, and then we got married 3 years after we first met. And actually, yeah, she graduated right before we got married. And I just didn't trust that our marriage would work. I had friends that were already going through tough times because it's hard to be a college coach and stay married and be happy.
Mhm.
And that's how I started doing individual training. I was working as a TV announcer and meeting a lot of parents and players who needed some help. And no one was doing that back then except for with your own players. I don't know what it was like overseas, but and you're in Spain, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Where in Spain are you?
I live in Galicia, the north of Portugal, in the
Okay.
west. It's at the end of the world. Finisterre.
Yeah, got it.
Near.
I don't know what it was like there, but no one was doing that here. They were just training their own players or doing camps and not getting really paid anything. So I started a business where I was training players for money that were playing all over the place. I resigned from the place I was at so I could coach all sorts of kids.
Mhm.
And that was 1993. And then by 99, it kind of had trickled up to working with professional players. And in 2002, I want to say, or maybe before that, I had my first players drafted. I had a couple players drafted.
Mhm.
And then 2003, I had Udonis Haslam, who
Yeah.
was a rookie with the Heat. He had just come from playing in France.
Mhm.
2004, I had Kevin Martin, got drafted first round, who became a great scorer in the NBA. And then it took off from there. I think I've had 85 or so NBA players, but that's how it started.
You also worked with Serge Ibaka. We know him. He plays for the Spanish team, and we have a you have a history with all the African players. And I listening to you in Dishes and Dimes. I love that pod.
Yeah.
I'm and on the girls. You tell there your story with my Masai Ujiri. Tell us, you have strong links with Africa.
Yeah, that's why I know so many African players. I've never worked with Serge, but I've worked with lots of African players, African descent, African origin. I met Masai. Actually, it was that first year I had a player drafted. One of the two players drafted was Nigerian born. Olumide Oyedeji was drafted by the Seattle Sonics. Tells you how long ago it was. They don't have a team anymore.
Mhm.
And I went to go see Olumide play in the summer league, and back then it was in Boston. Well, there were a few of them, but Boston was the main one, called Shaw's Summer League. Shaw's is a grocery store in Boston, and Masai was there and introduced himself to me after one of Olumide's games, and we just became friends. A year or two later, he contacted me and said, "I really need some help. I'm trying to work in the NBA or in college." He didn't really care which one. He didn't know. And I immediately had him fly to America, and I met him in Atlanta,
Mhm.
Georgia, for the Final Four, and introduced me to a bunch of people. And his first time really in America as a future NBA guy was with me in my gym. He had been here before. He went to college here. He played college here, and yeah, so we kind of had that long history together. And he's always sent me. I mean, he sent me a lot of Nigerian born, but I've had Senegalese, I've said Sudanese, I've had a players from the Congo,
Mhm.
and others, other places too. I love working with African based players, and I actually have a player that I trained for many years that plays in Spain. His name is Gal Mekel.
Mhm. I,
Gal plays in the Eurocup team there.
oh,
He's just incredible.
I only follow Obradoiro. Is a Galician
Yeah, I
team.
know that team. Yeah, yeah.
Moncho
Uh,
Fernandez, great coach.
Yeah, so I do. I know, of course, I do follow the ACB some because of that in the EuroLeague and Eurocup. But I've had a lot of great African-based players. I'm very fortunate, and I've had a lot of great European-based ones too.
Mhm. You also have been an ESPN analysis, and you have your great pod called TrueHoop. That we call it podcast, but it's like this. We are having video. I watched the other day your videos about the Warriors. Later we'll talk about this Warrior Suns
Yeah.
and how it was analyzing all the stuff around the NBA because some analysts don't how to say it are like soft, but you when when you have to say something you say it. For example, with Jason Kidd.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't think he's a great coach. Um, I think I can't speak for anyone else. I know for me, I've turned down opportunities to work in management in the NBA. I've turned down a head coaching offer. It's just
Mhm,
not what I want to do for the rest of my life. My kids just graduated high school 2 years ago. They're in college now. My son plays college basketball. My daughter's a student at a different school. And I feel like my wife, who worked her tail off to raise our kids and be the glue of our family, I don't think now is the time to say, okay, sweetie, I'm going to go travel, 100 days a year or whatever.
yeah.
Um, this is our time together. Although, as I said, she's on a plane to Hawaii as we speak. She's getting a vacation from me. Um, but and so I don't have to. I don't need a job from them. I'm not trying to make anyone happy. When I was hired at ESPN, which was in 2007, I was there for 10 years.
Mhm,
My job was to tell the truth, and my editorial job, meaning the guy who hired me, who ran all of ESPN.com from an editorial standpoint, he told me, if you, as soon as you write something or say something on SportsCenter or whatever that we all know, obviously, you're fired. Like, we don't need you to tell us what we already know.
yeah.
Your job is to tell us what we don't know because you made a living coaching this game and still do. And so now that we have our own company, Henry Abb and I left in 2017.
Mhm,
In 2019, we launched TrueHoop. In 2020, we launched Bring It In, our podcast, where we interview people, we talk a lot to each other about the finer points of the game, and my job is the same. It's to tell the truth as I see it. Uh, um, Manu, I'm an expert in almost nothing. I really don't know much about lots of stuff, but I know a lot about this game. I've earned that. Like, I can say that with confidence
mhm.
because I also say with humility, this game always teaches me something. I learn from every player I train. I talk to players all the time. I talk to people in the business all the time, coaching executives. I'm always learning. So my job is to relay that to our listeners and to our readership, our subscribers, help them see the game a little differently.
Because nowadays it seems that in the media, or either you have to be too polite, too soft, and everything is
Yeah.
is great, and every single player is the best player ever, or the other way around. You are like a former player that needs to be in one seat, so you have to say something loudly, so when it's like something to discuss, and but I like your podcast, your bringing it because you are honest, and you talk about basketball like we do here in NBAdictos. Let's talk like we talk with when we are not recording, like we are having a beer and talking about sometimes things that are not technical, other times yes, and that's the goal.
Right. That's the only way we can really all learn anyway, is just to be honest and have an honest conversation. If anyone thinks that they're never going to be wrong or thinks someone should be fired because they're wrong in our business, they don't really get it. Like, this is not a Hollywood script.
Mhm.
These are not movie scripts. This is real life. And a player that you think is no good today might be good tomorrow. And you may be wrong. I thought the Lakers would have a very good regular season. I was wrong. That doesn't
Mhm.
mean they can't turn it around. I think they probably will. I also recognize what they have to do to turn it around. I'm writing about it for a piece we're publishing tomorrow, actually, on TrueHoop.
Fire Westbrook.
No,
Fire.
no, no. That'd be easy. Yeah, they're not gonna do that. This is the challenge of
Yeah.
I get things right, I get things wrong. My job is to be more right than wrong, to recognize the mistakes I make and learn from them. And I tend to do that pretty well. I think coaches need to be pretty honest with themselves. And as a coach, I had no pride. What I mean by that is if I was trying something as a strategy, I was very quick to change it if I could see, oh, this isn't going to work. So everything I put into it sounded great in my head and
Yeah.
in practice. But now that we're doing it in the game, it's not working. Now, I can choose to stay with it because I think I want to get better at this for the next opponent we play. That's different. But if I need to win that game, then every possession I'm doing something strategically wrong in terms of how we're approaching it, it's a better chance we're going to lose. So I just had no pride with that. I didn't, to me, it was about winning and losing. It wasn't about winning individual decisions.
Yeah.
It was about winning in the end of the game. It wasn't about me. It's about the players and they want to win. So I take that same approach with what I do in my analysis is I have no pride. If I see something I'm wrong, I'm moving on and embracing that.
And it's okay to say I was wrong there and I was right here, and also we have to make the difference between, for example, the players that we like with the players that are the best. You can like a player that is not like a starter or something, but you like it, and there are different things.
I love Kevon Looney for the
Yeah,
Warriors. He's a starter, but he doesn't dunk the ball. He doesn't
yeah,
make threes, but he's one of my favorite players. Well, here's a great example of what I mean by this. So before the draft 2 years ago, I said I did not have LaMelo Ball ranked in my top three. I wrote an article saying James Weissman is definitely going to the Warriors at second. He's the most talented prospect in the draft. And people killed me for this. And then, of course, LaMelo had a very good year last year. He's playing very well this year. And so it looks like I was wrong, although no one could really say James Weissman. And Anthony Edwards is doing good too. I didn't love Anthony Edwards either. I thought Weissman should have gone number one. In terms of just pure talent, I realized they had Karl Anthony Towns. But my argument was he may beat Ben Simmons as a player. Back then, remember, he couldn't shoot. This is coming from Australia. And this Ben Simmons was an all-star. He was an all-NBA player. Like that was LaMelo's upside to my eyes, although he'd be more offensive based. He's a terrible defensive player, and that was a big concern of mine. But my bigger concern was how is he going to handle it if he's in a franchise that isn't big enough for him, considering how famous his dad is.
yeah,
These are issues that no one's talking about right now. But let's just wait till when it's time to sign an extension. Let's just wait till if they're still not very good or just average when he signs extension, which right now he might be a max player. It looks like he will be. We have to wait and see how this year plays out. The Hornets have time to decide. But are you convinced he's going to stay in Charlotte for 5, 6, 7, 8 years? I'm not. It doesn't mean I'm right. There's already talking about it. There's already talking about how he's going to want to get to a contender or a big franchise or big city. This is part of my issue. Is Minnesota at number one, Charlotte at number three? Sorry, I just don't have faith that all that comprises who he is going to make it a success there.
yeah.
And so my point to you, Manu, is even when we're right or even when we're wrong, to only look at things today is a mistake. I had Evan Mobley and Scotty Barnes as the top two players in this draft. So I look like a very smart man today. I do a lot of Toronto radio, which is how you heard me on that Dishes and Dimes podcast, because I've been so high in Scotty Barnes and no one else had him top two. No one really had Mobley. Jalen Green and
And you said,
Cunningham were
sorry, you said some strong opinions on Mobley and Barnes. You said that they are maybe future MVPs.
Yeah. I think both could be MVP players. I think they're Hall of Fame level talents, and they look great right now. But I'm not out there doing all these podcasts saying, "Look how smart I am. They're going to be the best." I don't know. It's possible they're going to be great. This is a really hard league. It's the best league in the world. There's lots of great coaches. Not every team is a great coach, but there's plenty of them, or smart coaches. There's enough good coaches. They're going to try to find holes in Barnes. They're going to try to find holes in Mobley. Good luck with that, but we don't know. That's the point Manu, of having experience like I do in this game for 3 decades. I remember Johnny Flynn. You don't remember him. He
Yeah,
played for Minnesota.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And
He was
I
he
liked
was
him.
drafted. He was drafted just before,
Right.
after Ricky Rubio and
That's right.
before Stephen Curry.
That's right. And right, of course. And we've had Michael Carter Williams. Like we've had guys that looked great, but didn't end up being great. So just like I'm not sure LaMelo is what it looks like he's going to be all told because of the off the court issues, his fame, his lack
Mhm.
of defense. There's concerns I have. I also know that Barnes and Mobley may level out. I don't think they will, but I know it's possible. So we need to be more patient with our analysis.
Yeah, and also we have to think about everything, not just on the court. 2 weeks ago, I was talking with Seth Parnell,
Yeah, my
and
buddy.
we were talking about Michael Porter Jr. and
Yeah,
we both thought that maybe it was too many money on Michael Porter Jr. with Denver because of his
his
health
back.
issues
Yeah,
and also his head. I said that,
I agree.
and unfortunately, in some days he has to go to surgery because of his back problems. It's not that Michael Porter Jr. is a bad player. He has a huge talent, but
Yeah,
we have to thought in to think in everything when we talk about a player.
right. Yeah, you have to factor a lot of things in. And as you said, you got to factor in off the court stuff too. I also think we do a terrible job collectively at factoring in defense, which is half our game.
Yep.
It's half our game. And I don't have that problem. I'm a coach.
Hmm.
In fact, I would argue initially I was a defensive minded coach. I adjusted and became a mind for both sides. I want to be great on both sides, but initially I was a defensive coach. And so I loved Mobley and Barnes in part and didn't love Lonzo LaMelo Ball in part because I thought of their defensive abilities. I love Lonzo Ball coming out of UCLA because I thought he could be a terrific defensive player. I didn't have the same feeling about LaMelo and still worry about that. He doesn't really play any defense at all. So when we're now analyzing and looking forward, we need to think about all of it, not just how well they dunk the ball, shoot a three, or dribble the ball. Those are just skills. In fact, going back to when I was a player development guy, um, and again, I'm glad that people think of me as the Godfather. It's very sweet. And I am almost 57, and you can see all my gray. I'm looking like a Godfather now. Um,
But Udonis seemed older than you.
oh, really?
Udonis Haslem, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
he
yeah,
seems older than you.
yeah, yeah. You're right. Um, I think that we have lost track of it in skill development. The idea is to make them better at the game of basketball. That process includes skill development, but it doesn't, it should include also just understanding how to play. And that's where I think that if I had to do it over again, I could wave a magic wand and start over in
Mhm.
1993. I would have tried to build a business where I hired lots of other people to learn the way I was teaching the game. Because what I was doing, and the reason why I had success and kept getting more and more clients initially in high school and then on to college and pro, my guys were better basketball players after they worked with me. They weren't just better shooters or dribblers. They understood how to win games more. That was the biggest thing for me. My
Mhm.
job is to help you win games.
And
That's shooting, passing, dribbling, defense, rebounding, racing the court, setting screens, cutting, passing. We really focused on passing. I had two brilliant passers. Actually, I had three. All three went to play high level college basketball. They all grew up 5 minutes from where I live right now, actually. Literally 5 minutes, 5, 10 minutes away. Two of them are 5 minutes, one was 10 minutes away from where I live now. Those things matter. And I just think we've lost a lot of that. A lot of the players we see now, Manu, in America are so skilled, but don't know how to utilize it. Jalen Green's the great example of the Houston Rockets. Brilliant.
basketball IQ, basketball IQ.
Yeah, it's exact. Well, There's two ways to look at that, right? So there's knowing the game from the standpoint of language and terminology, and that's experience. And then there's that IQ part, which is the feel of the game. I
Read
don't think necessarily Europeans get it better. I think that's a myth.
now.
I think that there are places in Europe where they do it great. There's places in America that do it great. And there's places in Europe that do it poorly, and they're robots. Serbia and Israel are two places that I know are very military-like in their
Mhm,
basketball approach, and I think that's a mistake. I'm not saying they do a terrible job. They don't.
mhm.
In fact, Denny Avdia, the kid for the Wizards, is
Yeah.
both Israeli and Serbian. His dad's Serbian, his mom Israeli. He grew up in Israel. He's an amazing defensive player for a second-year player and knows how to play, but is a bad offensive player right now. I think it's not you. There's no one country that's got it figured out that I've witnessed. I think there's individuals that do it better. And because we don't have a governing body for the world
Mhm,
to say, you know what, this should be our approach, I think we have this disconnection amongst all of our global hotspots for basketball. Because Canada's really become a hotspot in Toronto, for example. They
yeah.
might be doing a better job than some. We've we've got to teach the game the right way, and I don't think we're doing a great job of that.
And because we are talking about places, but I think that we have to talk about coaches
Yeah.
because we have coaches that need basketball IQ players. So if you grew up with that kind of coach, you maybe learn different things that if you grew up with a coach that only wants you to shoot like 60%, for example.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you're right. I think style is the way we teach the game and the way certain countries play the game has an impact. For example, had Ricky Rubio grown up in let's say Los Angeles or Chicago, whatever, Miami, um, he would have been a better NBA player. And here's why: the way you played basketball in Spain when he played, and the coach he had in particular. I watched him play. Was it Real Madrid or Barcelona? I don't remember who he played for.
Barcelona, Barcelona.
Barcelona. Yeah, it was a long
He
time ago.
started in Juventud when he was
Yeah, right,
14 years old, like a pro
right.
in
That part is great. Don't get me that playing at that
and then
level of talent.
then he switched to Barcelona. He was drafted and he stayed here playing in Barcelona with a defensive coach.
Right. Well, not only that, what that part is good. The defense. I mean, he's a good
Mm,
defensive player. Has been for a long time.
yeah.
He never thought this is the biggest challenge. And as I may write about this one day, I've written little pieces before about it. So when he was young, when I was coaching in the 80s, and I think he was probably born in the 90s, we had what we call lead guards, point guards, lead guards, quarterbacks for guys use
Mhm.
we
Yeah.
don't play
Yeah.
football there, but you know what I mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
Game managers. And with Derrick Rose and Russell Westbrook and John Wall, all these great Baron Davis was one of the first guys, high level scoring point guards who could pass and dribble, but they could really score and shoot or just score. In the case of Westbrook and Rose and Wall, they weren't great shooters. Um, we started weaponizing that position,
Hmm.
and it was super smart because it used to be when you played against those guys, they were not the threat to score, and you could adjust your defense accordingly.
Hmm.
And then when point guards started getting weaponized, where you had to think about them at the point of attack defensively and then deal with their passing. Also, John Wall was a great passer, not a good passer, a great passer, and the most athletic guy on the court almost every night.
Hmm.
When those things started happening, defenses started struggling. And Rubio, I thought, could have been a better scorer, but his mindset was pass first, pass second, shoot last. And
Yeah.
when you have that mindset, Manu, and this is something I teach all the time, defensively also, is when you're thinking shoot last, you tend to miss that shot.
Hmm.
You got to think score, but read. That's exactly how I teach it. My son is a point guard. Think score, but read the defense. So that if your read is shooting, you're ready to. If your read is shooting, but you've been thinking pass, 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 you're likely to miss way more. And that's what happened to Ricky all the time.
Mhm.
And I think it cost him All-Stars. Like, I think he was a better
Yeah.
player.
and
Um,
and also I think that there was a time that he has like a block in his mind, because you saw his shot around before the game, and it was like 1-3 1-3 1-3 1-3
yeah,
1-3, and there in the game it's like oh my god, he broke the the glass. So I think that there was a little of that, and fortunately we are seeing him this year more like when he plays with the national team, and I like the Ricky Rubio we are seeing this year.
I agree. Yeah, it's a big story. Listen, he is one of the best post feeders of all time. Now, I don't mean going to the wing and throwing it to the post. I mean off the dribble. He's so imaginative and he's so clever and he throws such accurate passes in traffic. Now, I was lucky enough to see him when he played with his starting lineup was Kevin Martin at the 2 was my player, Corey Brewer at the 3 was also my player,
Mhm.
Kevin Love at the 4, and Nick Pekovich at the 5.
Yeah.
That was like the second best starting lineup in the NBA the last year they had Love. They
Mhm.
just had a terrible bench, and a coach, Rick Adelman, was just exhausted. He wasn't really coaching anymore. I watched him every night, and he was marvelous as a passer. He just needed to score more, and so I think he's doing that more. You're right. The way he played this summer for Team Spain is that he could have done that his whole career, and he'd
Yeah.
have been a many-time All-Star and Hall of Famer. I think.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We are. Something that I love about your podcast and about you is that we start talking about something, and it's like another issue, another issue, another issue. So let's go back to to you, and you have a book. It's called Basketball is Jazz. We can
Yes.
see it here. Oscar Villares is a member of NBAdictos. He has this book, and he wants me to ask you if you have seen a change in the motivation of the young players at the time of playing basketball. It seems that nowadays all the kids, and this is my opinion, their parents want the kids to be pro when they are like 5 years old, and the goal is to play in the NBA, and it's paraphrasing Carmelo, championship or bust. And it seems that some years ago it was different, and the kids uh, play and have fun, and then if they keep improving, they start thinking about being pro. Do you notice that difference?
Well, I can't say that I know that many families with kids that are playing. I do get lots of questions on Twitter and so forth. Um, it sounds right to me, and it's a tragedy. Yeah, I can only speak from personal experience. I only have twins, boy and girl. My daughter did not play. My son was a baseball player,
Mhm.
and then I didn't let him play basketball at first because I had a feeling once he did, he would only play basketball. And so I think by the time he was 14, I let him. He was kind of playing both enough where he realized, okay, I like basketball better. Even though he was really built better for baseball, he was a better baseball player. He also was really short till very late in his high school career. Now he's well, in our words, he's 6'3". I don't know how many
Yeah.
centimeters he is, but he's not small. He's
Mhm.
3 inches taller than me. Um, but I know that my wife and I used. I wanted to use sports and for my daughter dance as a tool to teach our children more important life lessons. So we succeeded in that. And I'll never think for 1 second, had my son played baseball, he would more likely be professional than basketball. It's mind boggling to think about that. It's also negligent as a parent. Like our job as parents is to help our children have as much fun and joy as possible growing up while learning the lessons necessary to stay alive as an adult and to prosper.
Hmm.
You got to do both. It's
Yep.
not just giving them puppy dogs and ice cream every day. That's not teaching them anything. There's got to be, of course, there's got to be a balance. You just gave me the hand signal, right? We have to use it, as a coach. This is in my book, Basketball is Jazz. I think it's in like right away. We are first in the business to inspire. Well, as parents, I would argue that we're in the business to inspire and to guide. If we just want to give them everything they can have to smile, we're setting them up for unbelievable failure, consistent failure. If they don't learn how to work, if they don't learn how to think for themselves, if they don't learn how to figure out situations, if
Hmm.
they don't learn love of their fellow man and woman, these are all problems. For us as parents, and this is one of the beauties of this game compared to some other games we have here in America, our game is so diverse. My daughter chose dance. Her dance studio was mostly Latina girls, run by Latina women.
Hmm.
Most of my daughter's best friends for much of her life had been Latina. I think that's great.
Hmm.
Most of my son's best friends are black. We're black and are black. He's got white friends too. He's got European based friends. Basketball has given him a world to connect to, same as my daughter with dance. And yet, if I thought he was losing track of schoolwork or disrespecting someone, he never disrespected my wife trying to kick him out of the house, as he knew.
Hmm.
But if I thought he was just doing something wrong, I could use basketball as a way to have consequences. Like, hey, you're not going to practice today. We're not letting you shoot outside or whatever it was. We use sports the right way.
Hmm.
The fact that he wants to make a living in the NBA one day, which is what he says he still wants to do. He's 20 now and he still wants to do it. I'm almost sad because that means I have to pay attention to basketball when I'm an old man. I don't want to have to care anymore. I want to just hang out with my beautiful wife and sip on gin or booze or bourbon. But I have to watch. If I'm not working, I'll have to watch his game. So, but it's what he wants to do, and we use sports the right way. I don't know that enough parents do that because they don't know any better. That's the one thing I'll say. I did an 8-week episode on Mark Cuban's new app called Fireside. I just finished it, where we talked all about this exact issue. How do we use sports to help our kids do better in
Hmm.
life? And the reason why we call it basketball is jazz is because basketball is jazz. It isn't a game of one-on-one. It for some years in the 70s and 90s especially, it was 5 games of one-on-one because of the no help defense rules.
Hmm.
Now it's one game of 5-on-5. If
Yep.
you watch the Warriors Suns last night, balls were flying everywhere, bodies were cutting and running.
I'm going
I
to
have
ask you
friends.
about. I'm going to ask you about that game later.
Great, yeah. I mean, there are people who think they play a better style of basketball in Europe. And my argument always is, well, they don't have the talent in many cases that they do in the NBA, so they have to. But anyone watching the game last night could not say that.
Yeah.
There's Steph Curry, there's Devin Booker, there's Chris Paul, there's DeAndre Ayton, and that ball is and Draymond Green, and the ball is moving, and
And
players are
coach,
moving.
and there is Monty Williams and there is Steve Kerr
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
because
two great coaches.
I was tweeting last night seeing the game. It's so fun to see a NBA game without pick and roll and pick and roll and pick and roll.
Yeah, mix it up.
Maybe they are the two teams that play different in that offense. Obviously, the Warriors they don't even pick, and but Monty Williams, for example, he's I don't know how to say it in English, but his double screens. It's not the big man that came to the first screen, but it's Aidon, and then always Crowder
Yeah,
and maybe Breaches, and it's like different type variety that is great to see because also in I listen you talking about this. Whenever if all the teams the all in the other 28 teams play the same way pick and roll, you learn how to
yeah.
defend that, and one day you have to do something else is more difficult.
Right, of course. Well, when I was a young coach, I got great advice from a guy who just kind of retired now, a great college coach named Gordon Gibbons, and he knew that I had a head to run set plays. Like for some reason, I can just always come up with a cool set to run when I was in my early 20s. And he said, now come up with a motion offense for 10 seconds and then get in your set play. Really spread the defense out. And so I loved that. Well,
Hmm.
that's the Warriors. The Warriors run pick and roll. Steph Curry still runs a lot of pick and rolls every game. But mixed in with that is what we call at TrueHoop, we call it the Cuisinart. I don't know if you guys have that there. It's like a blender where
Hmm.
you blend food together. It's a very
Yep.
famous thing in America. I'm sure you have blenders. I know. And uh, and so they throw the ball into Looney in the elbow pinch post area, the mid post area. They throw the ball to Green, and they make their face cuts. They make their split cuts. They make their pin downs. Then they always have pick and roll if they need to get to it.
Yeah.
And that diversity makes them much, much harder to guard. And I would argue that the speed of that game last night with the talent on the court before Booker went out, there was a lot of talent on the
Mhm.
court. Helicopter that group in to play Madrid or Barcelona or some of these better teams in Europe. Good luck with that.
No, no,
Because not only are they really hard to guard, Manu, but as someone who's coached 150 EuroLeague, Euro Cup players, I've coached a lot of players, Americans that went there, Europeans that stayed there. I've coached them on both sides. Um, they don't have this speed and height and length at every position the way we do in the NBA. Now, the ACB is a tall league. You do have 7-footers.
yeah.
It's the tallest league in the world outside the NBA, I think. But not, I mean, you don't got Jordan Poole's running around shooting threes like that. That's speed. And Toscano Anderson and Gary Payton the second and his athleticism. This is what the best teams have, and then they play the right way. It's fun to watch.
I argue a lot with friends that I call them purists that say that the real basketball is here in
Yeah,
Europe. I think that there are just two different sports. The NBA it's made for the fans, for the viewers, and I think that the FIBA is it's made for the coaches. And sometimes I like this game. I grew up with the Lakers of the Showtime, Magic
me too.
Johnson, James Worthy,
Me too.
and I really love that kind of basketball. And then it came Michael Jordan, and they have to do something to stop him. And in the 90s, it was like all defensive, all around, and it was a kind of boring. I remember the finals of '99 between Knicks and the
Yeah.
Spurs.
Yeah.
It was awful, and it was NBA. But the difference is that the NBA, whenever they have that kind of things, they change the rules, they adapt, so the game evolves. Like this year, for example, with that silly fouls with
Yeah.
Harden, Doncic, Trey Young, that they were seeking the defender, and I think that we're seeing. So much better
I agree.
basketball this year. And I always say to my friends, okay, you can see horrible NBA games. If you see the other day it was like Houston Rockets, Oklahoma City Thunder, they don't have enough talent. But if you get the two last teams of the ACB, it's the same. But if you get the Warriors and the Suns, it's pure joy.
So, the purist guys, I don't like them very much because in their minds, their views. Let me rephrase this. If we were to follow their views, we would lose our sport because nobody would play it anymore.
Yeah.
Uh, the 1960s Celtics, pure basketball, give and go, passes everywhere. They couldn't fucking dribble the ball. They had no choice but to pass like that. They couldn't dribble. They all dribbled with one hand. They might use the other hand once and then right back to it. Like if you helicoptered the NBA, any team from this era down to a 60s team or a 70s or 80s or a 90s, it would be a 40 to 100 point blowout because nobody there was guarding anyone outside 15 feet.
Yeah.
And now you have to guard 4 or 5 players at a time. When the Warriors play, be at least at 5, they've got 5 shooters on the court. And a lot of teams are doing that, as you know. And you got to guard them 25 feet.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's such a different game. And I give the NBA credit for that evolution. I also think, and I think this is a really important point for your European listeners, the problem with the European basketball, in my opinion, is they think because every game is so important that you have to win or else, so the product is better. But I will argue that you would never see the Michael Porter Jr. we saw last year if he was playing in Europe because they wouldn't have played him. He sucked.
Yeah.
They would have lost and the coach would have got fired. But last year he was fucking, can I cuss?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, you can bleep it out. He was
No, no,
fucking
no, no.
fantastic.
There is
Okay.
no censorship
Well,
here.
when
You
you
can
dub
say
when you
whatever
dub
you want.
it, make it cool in Spanish.
Yeah.
He was amazing to watch, but you would never have seen him because he was fucking terrible. He could not guard anyone. And so I like the fact that we have to develop our guys through games, and they're going to suck. They're going to make mistakes. But I mean, I watched James Harden as a young player in Houston, and he wasn't anything of what he became. Nothing like what he became. But they let him. Kevin Durant would have sat the bench in Europe for 3 seasons. Manu, Kevin Durant's team. So 1 year in Seattle, 2 years in Oklahoma City. They were better when he was on the bench.
Yeah.
Had that been Europe, he'd have been on the bench because no coach would have risked getting fired.
Mm-hmm.
How is that better for the game of basketball globally? It's not.
And we also have to think that there is from time to time we talk about there are too many games in the regular season, 82 games, but maybe in the US you train less and play more, and you evolve your game, thinking about the playoffs. For example, Coach Baden-Holzer, 2 years in a row with such a great team in the regular season, but they hadn't a plan B or a extra gear in the playoffs, so they sink completely. Last year, Coach Baden-Holzer was thinking during the regular
For
season
sure.
was thinking about the playoffs. I think that
Yeah.
it's the same that we are seeing this year with the Utah Jazz and Coach Snyder.
Yeah, Utah. I watched all of Utah's game last year. I had a player that I was helping a lot on the team. I watched every minute of their games. They were by far the best team in the league. They should have won the championship, in my opinion. 2 things happened. One, they got hurt.
Yeah.
Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell, they're starting backcourt, both phenomenal players. Mike Conley had an unbelievable season last year, and Donovan Mitchell is an all-star, deservedly so. Both were all-stars, but Mitchell is the more deserving one. Conley
I
has
blame,
a
I blame Paul George for Donovan Mitchell. Those 2 tackles he
yeah,
did on
right.
Donovan Mitchell is. Do you like soccer?
Well, I have a minority ownership of a team in England. Yeah,
Yeah.
we purchased a team. Some friends of mine were part of a group that bought a team in Swansea. They were in the
Oh
Premier League.
yeah, yeah. Swansea City.
Unfortunately, we've been relegated to the Championship League. But yeah, I know
Mm.
soccer well.
Paul George was Sergio Ramos.
Right. So yeah, so Mitchell and Conley got hurt, and then the second thing that happened is Quinn Snyder just tends to be a little gun shy in adjusting. He has too much pride. Uh, Rudy Gobert, people blame Rudy Gobert. They're wrong. It's crazy. It's crazy. He's one of the best 5 players in the world right now.
Thank you,
Yeah.
because people are calling me all kind of stuff because I blame Quinn Snyder. I think that
Yeah.
that kind of defense is like putting a bullseye on Rudy Gobert's back, because
Well,
with that
they're asked.
defense
Go ahead.
and Rudy Gobert, he's going to suffer.
Well, they're asking him to do the impossible. Guard a 3-point shooter well and
Yeah.
then protect the rim like you do all the time. He's the best rim protector in the world, maybe ever. He's certainly close to that, ever. Like all time rim protector. Well, nobody can do that. Like Superman can't do that. Like, no, it's not possible. You have to give something. It's not fair to ask him of that. And so because other guys struggled to keep their perimeter attacker from the rim, Rudy had to guard the three and then try to protect the rim. You can't do it. It's not
Yep.
Rudy's fault. Had they played better defense on the perimeter, I think Rudy been better. And then Quinn also changed. You hear about teams, they don't play their bench as much in the postseason, but they had the best bench in the league. They shouldn't have changed. They had a lineup last year: Conley, Clarkson, Ingles, Niang, and Gobert. Crushed everybody. Everybody.
Mhm.
And he didn't barely play it in the postseason. It was crazy to me.
Mhm.
And Philadelphia is using Niang very well this year,
Yep.
and wisely so. He's having double figures for the Sixers. He played 16 minutes a game for the Jazz. He was their ninth man or eighth man. Yeah, the postseason can be different in this league, and because it's 7 games, you really can lock in an opponent. I like that. Now, let's be fair. I would shorten the season. I have always said 70 games. I have friends who say 58. I'd like to see a 70-game season, and I'd like to see it spread out a little bit more, get guys more rest, and
I
I'd
think
like
that's
to
I
see,
think that's the key. That is spreading maybe like 2 or 3 weeks the
yeah,
regular season,
yeah,
so they can rest more.
and then a little more rest in the postseason too. Get them more than a day of rest in between playoff games. And then also, I think we should have a better adoption by all the teams of resting their players some nights. And I know they don't want to do that because if you're going to see Kawhi and Paul George, you want to see Kawhi and Paul George. But the more young players we play, the better, the more stars we're going to have. You got to let them play.
Mhm.
Tyler Hero is a really good player now because Miami played him as a rookie.
Yep.
And I think we need to do that more.
And I also listen to you saying that the kids only playing one sport maybe can hurt them physically when they are pro because they only use their muscles
Yeah.
in one way.
Yeah, this isn't me. I'm repeating what scientists have said. Really smart scientists. Some of the best, like the single most famous orthopedic surgeon in America is based out of Alabama. His name is Dr. Andrews, and he's more
Mhm.
famous for football, which has lots of injuries. And he said it like 5 years ago, but a lot of other scientists have said it that our players are specializing too early. It's why I had my son play baseball until he
Yeah.
was almost 14 years old. Is I didn't want him in those early years, even before he hit puberty, to only play one sport. In my case, I was worried about basketball. So by having him play baseball at that time, now it really slowed his basketball development in part because he was small, but also because he was behind. When he finally started playing what we called AAU in sixth grade, all of his teammates had been together since fourth grade or even earlier. And but I didn't care. I knew what I was doing. Yeah, they just use the same muscles, the same tendons, and they overtrain it. And so what's happening is we're getting players entering the NBA, or in this case, or in the EuroLeague or the Euro Cup, who
Mhm.
have played 4 years of college, 3 years of college. Their bodies are already beat up, and it's not from college. It's not because of the EuroLeague schedule, the NBA schedule. Those are just enhancing the problem. They're already beaten up going way back. Now, hopefully, we'll get better training. We got to get the information out to families and coaches to stop overplaying players when they're young, but they're doing it still too much right now.
Yeah, I completely agree. Wow, we have 5 minutes left. Maybe I I abuse and have you some minutes more because I have a few things
Okay.
to say you. Um, I can let you go without talking about Steph Curry. He's having such a great season, and I'm thinking that he's near to be in the top five. I have to say that my top five normally is with 6 or 7 players. If the NBA makes a top 75 with 76, I can do it as well. But
Very good.
I think you talk about his joy that he brings to the game. I think that yesterday Phoenix Suns take that joy of him, and maybe it's a part of his horrible game. But what do you think? Because I think that Stephen Curry changed the game, and I think that a few players in history made that.
For sure. So I guess the best way to put it would be he has made bad shots good shots. That's really hard to do. When anyone else are taking those shots, it's probably a mistake.
Mhm.
But for him, it's smart. He's just one. I mean, I want to hear your top five. Mine is Jordan, Magic, Bird, LeBron, Kareem. What's your top five?
And mine is Jordan, a huge gap, and then
Oh no.
with
I,
no
I,
one.
I didn't give you an order, by the way. I didn't give you an order. I would have LeBron probably number one right now. Yeah.
No
Well,
one.
it depends on how we look at it. If we're looking at it as accomplishments, like who had the best career, I think Jordan and Bill Russell would be the top two. I don't play Bill Russell in my top 20. He shot 41% from the field as one of the few 7-footers in the game. He was an amazing defensive player, an amazing passer. But accomplishments, he'd be there. If we're looking at actual ability on the court, and I was coaching guys that played against Michael Jordan back then, when they were in high school and college. I would put LeBron like he's right. It's this way. He's 1 and 1A with Jordan. I'm happy. I'm not going to argue with you. Jordan was incredible too.
He's not
But
in my top
Curry,
five. He's not in
what's
my
that?
top five. In my top five is Michael Jordan, Magic
Yeah,
Johnson, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, of course, and I have to put Tim Duncan and Steph Curry because I
yeah.
mixed at the
No,
time.
all right, Manu, stop. So yes, Tim Duncan. Like I go back and forth with Duncan and Kareem, and I was a Laker fan. I love Kareem. LeBron has. There's no argument that LeBron isn't there. You can look at any data you want. You can look at not just high level data, but raw stuff. In terms of if you took all the best players in the world of all time and waved that magic wand that I so much would love to have and have never been able to figure out how to make one, and got the 20 best players to play in one arena, wouldn't that be great for a weekend? He or Jordan are the two best players. Done. I'm just telling you, Manu. If you look at both sides of the ball, which is a big deal,
Yeah,
he
but
is.
LeBron doesn't defend since 2014.
Well, he did. He did for the Lakers for 2 years. They were back to back top defense in the league. Now he
Well,
wasn't always their best defensive
A-
player.
AD did something there.
AD, well, for sure, AD did, but LeBron, when he needs to, has always done it. But Jordan didn't either for years. And people always talked about.
I think that in my top I consider obviously the career, the individual achievements, but also the collective achievement and winning balance in the finals, for example, and being the best player of their era. And I don't think that if we get the 2000s, I don't think that LeBron is the best of player of the NBA in the 2000s. I
Who
think that
was Duncan?
yeah, Duncan, Tim Duncan for me, yes,
Yeah,
for me, yes,
but
but,
LeBron's
and
been you think Steph Curry since 2010. That's
yeah,
your point.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're not right, but it's a great argument. It's a
It's
fucking
my
great
opinion.
argument.
I think that if we go to the stats, okay, yeah,
No, I don't. Hold on. I don't mean you're not right that Duncan wasn't the most dominant in 2010, the first 10 years, and that Curry. I'm just saying that's a made up thing to look at. The fact that LeBron has gone from 03 to 21 and won a title in was it 20 or 19? When did he win his title?
20, but
20, yeah.
but
And on
he
four
also had
titles on three different teams and garbage
three
Cavaliers.
different three different super teams that he made up, and
Wait a second. The Cavaliers were not a super team.
wow. I disagree. I disagree.
I mean, they had Matthew Dellavedova on their team.
Yeah, but they also have Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving.
They had who?
Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving.
Yeah, yes, but Kevin Love wasn't at his supreme, and neither was Kyrie. Manu, I love your podcast. You're a great person. I'm We're gonna be best friends for life. One day we'll have to argue over this over a couple of beers if that's okay, or some bourbon.
Yeah.
But your other names on your list is great. But to your point on Steph Curry, I completely agree. He's probably top five. It's just hard. It's hard, but he's so special. Uh,
I also
even
have this feeling that I only had with three players in my life, with Magic
Magic,
Johnson, with Michael Jordan, and with Curry. Is
yeah,
that everything can happen when he's on the court? It's like, and it doesn't matter that they are down 20, or
yeah,
he's having an awful game. It's like,
yeah,
okay, give Steph the ball, he can
yeah,
made up something.
yeah. Oh no, I wrote about that today for my article tomorrow. That he gives his team that feeling also. That's a valuable thing. When you know you've got the best player on the planet on your team, the Nets feel this way with Kevin Durant. Anything is possible. I think that uh, if Curry was a jerk, he would still be among the best ever. The fact that he's such a beloved teammate and plays with so much joy really elevates him another level. And he is, we were talking about Rudy Gobert. The Clippers scheme. The Clippers didn't target Rudy Gobert. I tweeted this months ago.
Mhm.
They schemed for him. They made him guard the three and then attack, 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 and you can't do both. Well, Curry gets schemed for every night. I don't think the Suns did anything special last night. He just missed shots. He was guarded well in some of them. He wasn't guarded so well on others. He had a bad shooting night. I don't think it's anything the Suns did. I don't think there's anything you can do other than really double him aggressively and execute well, and then hope other guys don't make shots. But there's risk to that because they're good at it. They're good
Mhm.
at playing 4-on-3 after they double Curry. He is, and he's an okay defensive player. He gets deflections. He's stubborn. He isn't any kind of great defensive player. It's hard in our league. It's hard to be that slight. But I mean, the Warriors have a real chance. If Weissman can come, I think Weissman can be a difference maker at the end of the year. No guarantee. Clay, of course, can be even just a decent threat because Jordan Poole's become a hell of a player.
Yeah.
Andrew Wiggins is a top 50 player in the league right now and moving up.
We talked before at the beginning about being right or wrong in our predictions. In the preseason, I said if Clay Thompson comes back at 85% of the player he was, my bet of for winning the title is Golden State Warriors, and kind of right. I think that Wiseman can be very important in the second unit,
Yeah,
in because I have to see him playing with Draymond and with Steph. I think that last year his basketball IQ sometimes wasn't very well, and in this team they need great basketball IQ players. For example, Kelly Oubre Jr. He's a great scorer, but he doesn't fit in this team. We see him in Charlotte Hornets scoring a lot, but it's a different role. I have to say that we have Neorticross here in the chat. He's happy that you defend LeBron because huge part of our listeners and viewers are huge fans of LeBron, and we always debate here in the podcast, and they are going to be very happy with you. and and he
it's not
says,
just me. It's not just me. It's people who don't even like LeBron recognize what he's done
and
is
he says, he
is
says,
extraordinary.
now is when you say him that you prefer Kobe before LeBron, and you kill
No,
him. No, no, no. I prefer LeBron. Uh,
no, it's not even close.
no, 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 no. LeBron is in my top 10, and Kobe isn't. So
Yeah, I would agree.
not in what we say before. It's not that you like or don't like a player. It's talking about he as a player, not
Yeah,
that you prefer him
yeah,
or not. Coach, I already abused and have you 5 more minutes and that we talk. Thank you very much. We can listen to you in True Hoops every weekend, no? Or
yeah.
or
We do. We do Mondays and Fridays live for our subscribers, and then we put it up online afterwards. It's on YouTube if you want to see the video, and then we just do the audio as a podcast. And then
I
I do a
normally
lot of
listen to
podcasts.
you in Spotify because I listen a lot of podcasts while I'm driving in my car. So I normally listen to you in my
Awesome.
in Spotify.
Good.
So thank you very much. It was great having you. I have your word. When I travel to the US, we're going to discuss with a bourbon
I
or a
can't
whiskey.
wait. I can't wait.
I prefer rum.
That's the only thing I don't really drink, but I have it at my house. I don't typically drink it. I'll drink pretty much anything else, but I'll make an exception for you, Mano, without question.
Thank you very much. It was a huge honor, David Thorpe, Coach Thorpe, having you in our show.
My pleasure for having me. Thanks for having me on. And I want to hear the Spanish version too. I want to hear who's going to do my voice, my raspy coaching voice.
I'm going to do both voices.
Hey, geez. Good luck for that.
Thank you very much, Coach.
Thank you. Be safe.